Hello, welcome everyone to the USO MVP series. I'm your host, Kelly Miyahara. Thank you so much for joining us today. A sincere thank you also for your service, wherever you guys are in the world. We are so grateful to be here together, and we've got a very special guest that I know you're super excited about as well. She's mastered the art of storytelling. I know you probably already well know this, but she continues to mesmerize readers around the world with stories of intriguingly heroic women. Kristin Hannah is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than 20 novels, including The Nightingale, The Firefly Lane, The Great Alone, and her newest release, The Four Winds. So I am thrilled to welcome to the show the ever-talented and also, Kristin, fellow University of Washington graduate, Kristin Hannah. How are you doing, Kristin?
Hi, good morning. How are you?
So great. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to meet you in person, but I know everyone is so excited to see you and meet you and get the chance to talk to you today. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I am honored to be here, and I'm really grateful to have been asked. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Hooray. Well, everybody who is watching, remember, we've got a chat box for you. So please go ahead and type in your questions there. So if you've got things you want to ask Kristin, type them in there. We're going to get to as many as we possibly can. And also, if you just want to let us know where you're coming from and shout us out, let us know. Okay. So Kristin, before we jump in, we've got a couple live looks. We're going to go to a couple places around the world. Lots of people want to talk to you. I know it's very exciting. I have, as I mentioned, I'm a UW graduate as well. And I was reading an article about you. Gosh, I think it was last year. And then I saw again this story that you talked about on the Today Show. And I thought it was really touching that actually your career in writing was sort of a premonition of your mother. So I want to start with that. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's one of those mini stories about how well mothers know their children. And, the way it got started for me, I'm a lawyer previously, and I was in my 3rd year of law school. And my mother was unfortunately coming to the end of her battle with breast cancer. And so, I was very young, 25, I guess. And we were talking one day and I was complaining about my classes. And she said, "Oh, don't worry, honey. You're going to be a writer anyway." And it was the most amazing moment. I mean, I had never written a short story. I'd never expressed any interest in writing, but I was one of those kids whose nose was always buried in a book. And so to make a long story short, we decided to start writing a book together. And that was really sort of the beginning for me. So I know she is somewhere very happy and knowing that she was right.
Yeah, of course. All of us mothers, we know, right? Mom's always right? No matter how old we get, Mom is always right. So, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that, Kristin. We actually have our first question coming in from Jen Bedard. She's at USO Coast Guard Engineering Unit in Cleveland, Ohio. She says, what would you say your greatest strength is as a writer?
My greatest strength as a writer, I think it's honestly, my greatest strength as a writer is probably my belief in the inner lives of women and the importance of what we do and the importance of our emotions and our friendships. And I'm just so, I guess, dialed in to being a woman and being a mother and being a sister that I think I'm able to bring that level of connection and emotion to my work.
Kristin, absolutely. And I thank you for that, because it's a gift, not only to women around the world, but to everyone, truly. And I think that you being dialed into that and writing such remarkable stories about these powerful women, it's inspiring. And honestly, I'm convinced, and I think you already know this, it's totally changing the world. So thank you. Thank you so much for that gift. Do you have a favorite character that you've developed? And do you have any backstories about them? Maybe, because it's designed about somebody you know, or maybe even yourself?
I have a couple. My favorite character so far is Elsa, the heroine from The Four Winds, my recent book. And I think the reason is she's a little different for me. She really begins her journey as a woman with no self-confidence, no self-esteem, who did not come from a happy family. And it's really sort of through finding love and becoming a mother and finding a mother figure, that she really learns to stand up and find her voice. And so she's definitely a favorite. There's a book called Firefly Lane, and Kate is very much, that's the book that I wrote to finally try to understand my mother. I was 40 years old when I started the book, and I didn't realize at the time that I was the same age she was when she was diagnosed when I started, and I was the same age she was when she died when I finished. So I look back and I feel like she was guiding that whole journey. And then there's Jolene from Homefront, you know, the helicopter pilot who deploys. And that was such a remarkable book for me to write. And that was really sort of my way of saying thank you to people for their service. You know, I'm just so grateful for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know everyone who is listening probably got the same chills that I did just now as you shared that. We are actually going to go take a live look now, Kristen, to Staff Sergeant David Tang. He's at Little Rock Air Force Base in Arkansas. So David, can you join us? Hi. And Angelina, are you with us as well?
Yes.
Hooray, she made it. I'm so glad. This is his wife, Angelina, as well. Welcome, you guys. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
How you doing? So, Staff Sergeant David Tang, and stationed at Little Rock Air Force Base. I'm currently a unit deployment manager, but by trade, I'm a structural craftsman. So anything carpentry and metalwork, pretty much. And my question, so I was reading up a little bit more about you and wanted to find out a little bit more about you. And I saw that you attended law school before. And when was that transition to becoming an author? Because that's a big change. Usually when you're going to law school, that's a pretty serious thing and pretty committed. So when did you decide that you were going to become an author or start moving towards that way?
That's so interesting. Hello, thank you for joining. It's great to talk to you guys. This kind of goes in with my previous story with my mom. What happened was my mom and I sort of started writing this novel together, but I had no interest in it. So I just did all this research, and then I put everything in a box and just waited, you know, and then and practiced law, you know, took the bar exam and started working. And several years later, when I got pregnant, I had a really difficult pregnancy, and I went into labor at 14 weeks. And from then I was in bed, mostly in the hospital, but sometimes at home. And, you know, there was just nothing to do back in those days. There was no social media. There was, you know, nothing on television except The Price is Right. And so I took down all those notes from my mom, and I just thought, well, I'll just give this a try. And by the end of the pregnancy, I was so in love with the idea of writing, and I realized I would not be able to have any more children. So I decided that I really wanted to be an at-home mom. That was so important to me. So I thought, you know, I will give this writing thing 5 years. And if it doesn't work out when he starts, you know, first grade, I'll go back to the law. And I never did.
Yeah.
So I have a question kind of feeding off of this. How do you write now? So do you have a plan for your writing, or do you just sit and brainstorm, or are you in a grocery store and you have an idea and you're like, oh, I need to write this down? How does the day look for you?
You know, I mean, I guess the easiest answer is I'm still a lawyer. So, you know, I still have that personality. So I do a ton of research. I do a ton of planning. And when you look back, you know, at the course of my career, I wrote the first several books either during nap time or, you know, at 5 a.m. before my son woke up, you know, and I just hope to remember to pick him up from school at some point. And so I learned to plan a lot so that I could sit down when I had time and write really quickly. And I guess the only other interesting thing is I still write longhand on yellow legal pads. So, and I do that because I could do it in the carpool lane. I could do it, in the backyard. I could do it sitting next to the community pool. That was the really great thing for me about writing, is that it's so mobile. I could do it anywhere at any time. And, when you're a mom, you just don't have a lot of time sometimes.
I know. I think these guys are nodding because I thought I heard children in the background. You guys know what multitasking is like, right?
We have two. Yeah.
Well, we're glad that you all could join us. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for your questions. Thank you for your service. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Oh my gosh, I love that. They were like, kids, be quiet. We're trying to talk to Kristin Hannah right now.
That's so funny.
Oh, it's real life, right? Loving it. All right, we are actually right. We are actually going to go. There's actually someone who wanted to be with us who couldn't be here live, but we're going to show a video of her question. It's Cassandra Williams. She is a USO volunteer and military spouse at Ramstein Air Force Base.
My name is Cassandra Williams, and I am a lead volunteer with the USO Global Virtual Book Club. Next month in October, we will be reading Firefly Lane, and the readers would like to know which of the main characters you identify with the most.
Well, hello, Cassandra. Thank you for joining us. Well, that's an easy one. Firefly Lane is definitely the most autobiographical of my books. It is set in my hometown, at the university I went to, the degree I got, and it's very much about the struggles of being an at-home mother versus, a working mother, and how difficult it is on all of us, no matter what road we choose. And the two leads are Kate and Tully. And, one is sort of an ambitious firebrand who wants to set the world on fire. And the other one is a quieter mom who is, really focused on her family and her community. And that's me. I'm Kate. I'd like to be the firebrand, but I'm not.
Well, that leads me to an interesting question. So I know that Netflix is doing a series. And what is that like, Kristen, to see these such well-known actors now, and they're bringing all of your stories to life, literally on screen? I mean, that's got to be, it's not the first time, I know, for you, but what does that feel like to see all of your work like that?
It's surreal, honestly. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I've had a lot of things in development, a lot of things being written over the years, a lot of people interested, but Firefly Lane is the first thing that actually I got to sit down and watch on TV. And it was so amazing because like the sets, the house, the clothing, everything from the 1970s, it looked like my life. And my brother called and he said, did you give them pictures? And I'm like, no, they just kind of figured it out, because I guess I was revealing in the book. And so it was really, I don't know, it was so cool to watch Katherine Heigl and Sarah Chalk and Ben Lawson just breathe life into these characters. And they do bring things that aren't from the book and that are from their experiences. And so for me, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I got to say, when you said that, it was kind of remarkable how it just reflected everything that you intended in the story. That is a testament to your writing, though, Kristen. You know that, right? Because you gave that vivid feeling. I mean, you wrote it all for us, so it's easy probably for them to portray it for you.
Yeah.
All right, Kristen, we're going to go take a live look right now over to veteran Kristen Stober. She's in Montana. So, Kristen, welcome in. Thank you for your service. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my question. Yeah, my name's Kristen as well, but I'm an EN. And yeah, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I did one tour in Afghanistan, and now I'm just in Montana. And my question is, I've read several of your books, and I love how you have strong female characters, and you don't stick to like one historical era. You kind of like do it all over. I love that. And I'm just wondering what's next.
Well, I'm right in the middle of it. I turned in The Four Winds basically in March of 2020. It was finished. So the next book won't come out for probably 2 more years.
Okay.
But I can tell you there is a very strong military component again.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That's it. And it's another historical novel set in America about, it's what I do at this moment, these women finding their voices, because I think that what we do is so important, and our stories aren't told often enough.
Awesome.
So, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, thanks for your support.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. We have another question actually coming in, Kristen. It's from Brittany Wagemaker. Brittany says, what inspired you to write The Great Alone? It was really powerful.
Thank you. The Great Alone it's a novel set in Alaska, set in the 1970s, about a Vietnam vet who comes home with undiagnosed PTSD, and the price that he pays and his family pays as they try to sort of start a new life off the grid. And, primarily the driving force behind the novel was twofold. One, my family business is in Alaska. So my dad and my brother run a sport fishing lodge in Alaska. So for 30 years, we've been going up most summers. They sort of built this lodge from scratch with a lot of homesteader friends. And I just found myself so drawn to the sort of both the romanticism and the menace of living off the grid in a place that is spectacularly beautiful and deeply dangerous, depending, on your skill set. And it was interesting. I honestly didn't think the book would connect with people the way it did, but I think there's just something so mysterious and romantic about Alaska.
Oh, absolutely. Such a beautiful place. Now I have to ask, Kristen, I know you're also a world traveler. Does that mean for your homework that you're traveling to all of these places and studying it all as you write?
I do now if I can. And that does actually at some point factor into, hey, I'd really like to go to France. Let's do the Nightingale. It does help if it's someplace that I really want to go or someplace that I know really well. But I haven't always. I wrote a book called Winter Garden about World War II Russia, and I never went. I would like to, but I still haven't been yet.
Well, I think it will be really rewarding one day when you get there, right? All right, we've got a question coming in from Anna Maloney. What was the first book that you wrote with your mother? Was it actually published, and what was it about?
So being mother and daughter, we immediately started arguing about what kind of book we were going to write.
Of course.
And she wanted to write historical romance and I wanted to write horror. And so we sort of, battled back and forth. And ultimately my mom said, look, I'm sick. I win. We're writing historical romance. And so we came up with, I had never read historical romance, and I think she'd only read a little bit. So we came up with what we thought was a really great idea about a girl who, let me think, masquerades as a cabin boy and sneaks onto a pirate ship. So it turned out it was a really bad idea, and it had been done 8 billion times before already, but we thought we were, on the cutting edge. And so that's what we did. It was 18th century Caribbean and Scotland. And what it did was, both taught me the beginnings of the discipline it takes to write, but more importantly, it made me realize that I loved sort of this world of make-believe. And then the issue was, okay, so now you'd like to be a writer. Then I had to learn how to actually be one, which, took a long time. And no, that book was never published. And there's a note on it that it cannot be published after my death either. Nobody wants to read this book, trust me.
It shall remain. Like one day in the far future, it's going to be in a glass case enclosed with that note on top.
Exactly.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that story. We are going to go ahead and take another live look. We're going to head over to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We've got a group of folks there who are part of a book club that have lots of questions for you. Hi, guys. Welcome. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you, Callie. Thank you, Kristen, for being here today. We appreciate it so much. We're at Wright-Patterson. We're in Dayton, Ohio. Dayton's the home of the Wright brothers. It's the science and engineering hub of the whole Air Force, and it's also home to one of the great Air Force spouse book clubs that there's ever been, in my opinion. I took a little poll, and between even this group right here, I think they have at least 16 reads among them of your different books. So it's a real fan base here. I have a quick question, and they have too, but I just got to ask. You said you wrote everything down by hand, so you must have like a forearm of steel, I think. How do you get everything off those legal pads and into your books? And is there anything I can learn from them?
In the early days, I wrote in the yellow legal pads, and I would finish a scene or a chapter, and then I would, move to the computer and I would type it into my computer. And then when I had everything all done, I would edit on a combination of yellow pads and hard copy. Now, I'm very lucky to have an assistant who takes my yellow legal pads so that I can continue writing while she's entering them, and then gives me, the pages when they're done. When we started 15 years ago, she was very sweet and quiet, and she never said anything about what she was entering. But now in the text era, I get constant texts about, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're doing this. So now I get editorial advice throughout the whole process from her.
Wow, that sounds so practical. Do you keep all those yellow legal pads, or do you have just crates in your attic?
Yes, and my husband keeps asking me, what are we going to do with these Rubbermaid containers? Because they're everywhere, but I can't seem to throw them away.
Oh, no. And Kristen, I imagine they're very valuable to many of your fans. So please don't throw those away.
Right. Well, we've got a couple spouses who would also love to ask you questions. So if you want to come.
Great.
First.
Hi, I'm Cindy, and I actually am from Ohio. So we moved back here to take care of all 4 living parents, believe it or not, in their 80s and 90s. Anyway, my question for you is, I've read 3 of your books, and in all of them, the women start out thinking of themselves as weak and as flawed, and they make some horrible choices. And then their resilience and their strength comes out by the end. And the men that they're associated with are, well, frankly, a bunch of cads. Where did you meet these people? Where did you meet these people?
Oh, that's very funny. Do you know which titles have you read?
I've read The 4 Winds. I've read The Great Alone, and I've read The Nightingales.
Okay. I don't know that I agree that they all start out weak. I feel like what they start out with is not the strength that they need to handle whatever extraordinary thing I'm sort of throwing at them. I think Elsa starts out as weaker, but I don't want the men to be cads, obviously. But some of them, sometimes part of what women have to overcome is their marriage, their love affair, their family, their parents. And, so I'm just really, I guess, invested in women becoming the heroes of pieces. We've all been reading our whole lives about heroic men. And when you look around, there's just so many heroic women. Now, that doesn't in any way diminish the heroism of men. And I'm very, interested in that as well. But like in Homefront, I kind of flipped it where the strong man has to stay at home and be the dad. And it turns out he thinks he's not very good at it. And the woman, deploys and finds that she loves it. And so, I'm just trying to write stories about different women's lives, because I think a lot of times with authors, they just sort of write the same story over and over again. And I don't want to fall into that.
No, you definitely haven't. And the women, I didn't mean to say they start out weak. It's that they think that they are weak.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're fabulous and very real.
Well, thank you. And I think that's that finding our selfhood, finding our voice is sort of an essential female struggle. You know, because society has always prescribed certain roles for us. And when we try to step out of that, it's often difficult. And you have to find the strength to sort of follow your inner voice.
Thank you. Yeah, keep writing.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I know we have a couple more questions here. Hello.
Hello. And
Hi.
thank you for giving us this opportunity. This is just wonderful. My name is Karen. I'm a 30-year Air Force retiree, and I've had a few professions, but the main one was as a mental health provider. So question, I love your books, and I get my hands on every one I can. And the people at the library, when I walk in, they know what I want. But what I really want to know is, how do you dig so deep into the psychological profile of your characters? I learned from your books as much as I enjoyed them.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you so much for your service. And the mental health thing is something that is just so important right now to all of us. So thank you for that. And I think, you know, it's really my interest, you know, whether I'm looking at, you know, someone who's been who's come from a difficult background, who's suffering from an illness or a mental illness, or just plain issues that make it difficult for them to sort of get their feet underneath them. It all starts with research. It all starts with me understanding, sort of scientifically, sociologically, you know, what all these things feel like. And then what I think my job is, as a novelist, is to take all of this research that I do, whether it's psychological, sociological, political, whatever it is. I read the 300 books so you don't have to. And, you know, I then take all of that information and I try to put it in human terms so that you understand, for example, in the Four Winds, you understand what it feels like when you're being treated badly, or when you don't have enough food, or how to save your children, or you know, when Jolene comes back from war, how difficult it feels for her to transition, and all of those sorts of things, because I believe that as a novelist, what I can bring to the table is this idea of empathy, because I think if we understand other people, even if they're different from us, and if we can understand what we have in common, I think it just, it makes life better. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I thank you for saying you see it. I appreciate that.
We're done at Wright-Pat, but we appreciate being here so much.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for your service. We appreciate spending time with you today. Thanks for being here. Awesome. We've got tons of questions coming in, Kristen, in the Q&A box. So we've been wading through them right now. I've got a couple for you.
Okay.
Here we go. The first one comes from Rachel Humphreys. She said, what are your hobbies outside of being a brilliant writer?
Oh, well, thank you, Rachel. Let's see. I'm a very sort of outdoorsy person, so I like to run. I like to, you know, be out and about, hiking and that sort of thing. As you pointed out, Kelly, I love to travel. So what I really try to do is, in between books, to see something of the world that I haven't seen. Now that my son is, you know, grown and gone, my husband and I are able to travel a little bit more. So, or we were, of course, but so we're looking forward to getting back to that. I am, of course, a huge reader, and I love cooking and going out to restaurants and having wine with my girlfriends.
Oh, you have a good life. That's a good life, Kristen.
Yeah, it is.
So I have to ask, what is, once things clear up and we're all free to go travel where we like, what is your next destination, or what's your dream destination?
Well, I was supposed to, in March or April of 2020, I was supposed to go to Budapest to watch the filming of the Nightingale. So we are hoping now that it will be filming in April of 21. So I'm hoping, 22, hoping to go next spring to Budapest. And I feel that you must go through Paris. So I'm just going to try to make it that way.
Agreed. 100%. Of course. Why not? Tag on a couple other cities as well. But how cool is that? Not only do you get to go to Budapest, but you're going to go to see, again, your writing coming to life on the big screen.
It's so exciting. And it's Elle and Dakota Fanning are playing the sisters. So they're real sisters. So it just, you never know what it's going to be, because I'm not one of those people. I'm not in control of these things, and I don't want to be in control of these things. So what it really allows me to be is kind of a fan of my own work, because usually I'm so analytical and I'm so focused on how can I make something better. Whereas with, movies and stuff, it's just, I just get to watch it.
Wow, that's cool. I was going to ask that. Like, how involved are you, and do you have say in that? But you enjoy just sitting back and watching it all happen, and then you get to watch the magic. That's fantastic.
It's a hard world, Hollywood and screenwriting. And I'm pretty clear on, sort of what I do well and what I don't do well and what's worth my time. Because, when you've got a career and you've got a family and you've got friends, as things expand, what's really important is your priorities. And as you get older, you realize that what you choose to spend your time on is really important. And so I have become, over the years, very careful to protect my downtime so that I can be with family and friends.
Oh, that's so good. I think that is fantastic advice for everyone in whatever stage of life you're in, right? Yeah. And especially as we become mothers and we're professionals, we forget that, how important that is. So thank you for saying that. I know I appreciate that reminder as well.
When you're in the middle of it.
Right?
And you're so busy. Yeah.
100%. We've got another question coming in from Blanca Cook. She says, I've read only a few of your books so far, but I'm really looking forward to reading all of them. And she said, I believe that you live in the Pacific Northwest. Does any of your books take place, or will the future books take place? She said that she lived in Puyallup and she fell in love with the Evergreen State. I know we touched on this a little bit, but maybe there's some more future things as well.
Well, yeah, really until the Nightingale, I think almost all of my books are the Pacific Northwest. I've done Bainbridge Island, Seattle, Paulsbo, Wenatchee, the Olympic Peninsula, Forks. So if you look at any of my early books from, say, like On Mystic Lake through The Things We Do for Love, I think they're pretty much all Pacific Northwest settings. Now, I have not done Puyallup, so I will put that on the list.
Aha, I love that. Okay, so Blanca, be on the lookout. Maybe Puyallup's coming up next. So Alexandra Reese is asking, what are you currently reading?
Well, actually, at the moment, I am reading the next manuscript from my best friend and fellow novelist, Megan Chance. She's got a book coming out in 2022. And so I'm currently editing that. And I just finished a book called We Begin at the End by Chris Whitaker, which I really, really loved. And a book called Lightning Strike by William Kent Kruger that I also loved.
Wow. So I have to ask, Kristen, when you are reading other authors' books, is there a community there of authors? Do you guys talk to each other? Are you in touch? Because I can only imagine if they find out that Kristin Hannah loved my book, that's a huge compliment, right? So I'm just curious, is there communication there?
Oh, yeah. And because it's such a weird career and it's always been so solitary, now we're doing a lot more with Zoom and everything. But so, yeah, we as a group, have a lot of support for each other. I've got a lot of friends that I've been writing with, like Megan Chance, since we were 28 years old, and have always supported each other. We do luncheons and parties and, all of that kind of stuff. And then via the internet, of course, social media, you're able to say, hey, I just read, so-and-so's book and it was really great. And I try to do that, for as many authors as I can, because it's a difficult world now to sort of establish a career.
Wow, that's awesome. And I love that you guys all are looking out for each other as well. So that actually leads perfectly into the next question. And I don't know, I don't want you to offend anyone, so let me know if you can't answer it. But Anna Maloney asked, who is your favorite author?
Favorite author. Of course I have millions. I can tell you my two favorite books are probably To Kill a Mockingbird and Lord of the Rings. But my favorite, probably overall, our author of all time is probably Pat Conroy. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us. And I still read Stephen King. I've been reading him since I was 18 years old, and I love his stuff. So I've got a lot of favorite authors.
I love that. And I'm sure you've read tons and tons of books. So it's a huge compliment to all those authors that you've mentioned. Rebecca Sloan, she is at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Alaska. And she says, which three of your characters would you most love to invite over for dinner?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. I've never had that before. That's so interesting.
I love it.
Let's see, who would I most like to have dinner with? I know them too well. So I need to find someone I don't know that well.
Their faults as well, right?
Yes. Okay, so I would have Anya from Winter Garden. I would have Vian from the Nightingale, and Elsa from the Four Winds. I think between those three women, I would learn a lot about surviving tough times and learning to find joy.
Wow. It's funny. I just was imagining in my head what this dinner would look like. And there's a powerhouse of women sitting at that table.
Yes.
All right. Our next question comes from Amanda Siebert at Naval Station, Great Lakes, Illinois. Do you know how your books will end when you start it, or do you decide the endings as you write them?
What a great question. Well, like I said earlier, I'm a big planner, and I do about a year's worth of research. So I know historically the story I'm trying to tell. I know what I believe the end will be. I don't write the beginning if I don't know the end. And so I do have an idea of what the entire flow of the book is about and how it will end. That being said, I have a terrible habit of not actually writing the book that I intend to write. And so what happens is I'm very editorial and I'm very analytical. So as I'm writing, if something seems better than what I had originally wanted to do, I will shift gears. And an example of that is The Four Winds. I did my year's worth of research. I wrote the first draft of the book, which was about 500 pages. That took, a year. And Elsa was not really in the book. It wasn't until I got to the last 50 pages of the novel that she appeared as a secondary character. And I knew instantly that what she brought to the table was more interesting than anything I had been writing for the last year. And so I ended up having to decide, am I going to throw away everything and start over? Which is what I did. And with Nightingale, the same thing. I wrote the entire first draft and there was only the Isabel storyline. And I decided at the second draft, okay, I need another sister here. I need to broaden this story. So the ending always still feels the same. I'm still making the same statement. I still am I have the same message. But sometimes it ends up being different than I had imagined because the book is different.
Sure. Wow. That's so interesting. I can't imagine how hard of a decision that must be. You know, you've written for a year. You've been working on something and you're kind of married to it in a way because it's your baby. You've been working on this, but then you realize that, wow, I've got something even better there. That's pretty incredible. And I've got to say, I know that the fans watching, they're like, but I really want to read that first version. Right? I'm sure there's plenty of people, right, you guys? I'm sure you're thinking that. I know I thought it. So Kristen, thank you so much for sharing all this. This is awesome. I know that I had mentioned before, we've got folks from around the globe watching today. And I know even after this will live on the internet and many more people will enjoy it. So I wanted to read to you a list of the folks who are tuning in live right now. It's pretty remarkable who you're touching around the world. Germany, Washington, Virginia, Texas, Nevada, Alabama, Kentucky, Washington, D.C., Illinois, North Carolina, Alaska, Ohio, Colorado, Hawaii, Spain, Georgia, Tennessee. I mean, there's folks all over the world. And I know that you have touched many lives. I know your books have been translated, into like 40 some languages across the globe. So thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you so much for empowering women around the world and continuing to do so. You're such a powerful voice. And it's such a pleasure to meet you. I think everyone here who has been here is so refreshed and inspired by you and your energy and all that you're doing. So thank you so much. And I know that you probably have a message of support to all our service members around the world watching. So will you please go ahead and send that message to them now?
Oh, thank you. I am so honored to be here and honored to be able just simply to say thank you. I am in awe of the commitment and that our service members and their families make. And so I just cannot thank you all enough. And go ahead and let me know on like Instagram or Facebook if there are military themed ideas I'm missing. Let me know, because that's I guess how I can give back, to illuminate your stories and to help you pass the time while you're on your difficult journeys.
Wow, I love that. You guys heard it. Kristin Hannah herself told you. She's taking ideas from you guys. You may be featured in her next book, right? Thank you again so much, Kristen. What a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.